She turned to Lillian and laughed scornfully. "Prepare to die with your father and mother now, or get ready to experience the worst of me." Without another word, Aisha charged into Lillian's room. She grabbed all of Lillian's good clothes and shoes, carried them to the backyard, and set them on fire. As the flames rose, she shouted, "This is my house, and no one competes with my child." Lillian sat on the floor crying.
The full story.
In the charming city of Futuna, there lived a little girl, Lillian. She came into the world under tragic circumstances. Her mother passed away during childbirth due to complications. Lillian's father, Frank, was devastated by the loss. In his grief, he vowed never to marry again and decided to raise his daughter alone. He couldn't bear the thought of being separated from her, so he kept her close, determined to give her all the love he had left. To help care for Lillian, Frank's elderly mother moved in with them. She became Lillian's world, showering her with love and care. Frank found some peace in his mother's presence, especially when he saw how happy Lillian was. Lillian and her grandmother were inseparable. She couldn't imagine doing anything without her. One fateful day, Frank had to leave for a business trip, promising to return the same night. As the night wore on, and Frank hadn't yet come back, Lillian's grandmother was in the kitchen preparing dinner. Suddenly, the power went out, leaving the house in complete darkness. Concerned, she called out, "Lillian, stay where you are until I turn on the generator." As she carefully made her way to the balcony, where the generator was kept, she misstepped and fell hard to the ground. Lillian, just 3 years old, heard the crash and rushed to her grandmother, calling out, "Grandma, Grandma." She found her lying on the floor in the dark. Her grandmother, trying to sound strong, said, "I'm okay, sweetheart, just stay calm. Though, my legs hurt, but I'll be fine." Tears filled Lillian's eyes as she watched her grandmother struggle to get up. Moments later, the electricity was restored, casting a dim light over the scene. Her grandmother, with great effort, managed to get back inside, but she was too weak to continue cooking. They went to bed without dinner that night, the house unusually quiet. The next day, Frank returned, full of apologies for not making it home as promised. When he learned of his mother's fall, he was deeply concerned. They placed her on medication, hoping for a quick recovery. But a week later, a heartbreaking discovery was made. Lillian's grandmother had passed away in her sleep. The loss hit Lillian hard. She was inconsolable, her tiny heart crushed by the absence of the one person who had always been there for her. Frank was shedding tears for days, feeling guilty for her death. A year after the passing of Lillian's grandmother, when Lillian was just 4 years old, Frank remarried. His new wife, Aisha, was a beautiful and caring woman. Frank was overjoyed to have found someone who genuinely cared for Lillian, and he was absolutely grateful to her for that. But his happiness was short-lived. As soon as Aisha gave birth to their daughter, Rika, her attitude towards Lillian changed. Lillian was thrilled to have a younger sister and wanted nothing more than to play with her. But whenever she tried, Aisha would snap at her, "Don't touch my baby. I don't want your bad luck rubbing off on her. You're the reason your mother died." The once happy home began to feel cold and unwelcoming. Frank noticed the change and grew increasingly depressed. He tried to talk to Aisha, pleading with her to treat both girls with love. "Lillian and Rika are both my daughters," he said. "I don't want to see them treated differently. Lillian is your daughter too." But each time he talks about it, Aisha always explodes with anger. "My daughter, never. She's a curse, and I won't pretend otherwise." Frank, hurt and frustrated, insisted, "She's my lovely daughter, and you know it." Orisha, glaring at him, "Be warned, if you want peace in this house, don't ever bring up Lillian's issue with me again." Meanwhile, Lillian sat in a corner, tears streaming down her face. Rika went to her, with a small cane in her hand, began to hit her while singing, crying baby, what are you doing?" She sang the taunt repeatedly, each word punctuated by another hit. Frank, seeing this, rushed over and shouted, "Rika, she's your elder sister. Don't ever do that to her again." Rika, startled, began to cry, and Oisha quickly intervened, rebuking Frank, "Don't you dare shout at my baby again. Let me enjoy my life, and don't push me, or you'll regret it." Lillian was left to do all the housework, like mopping the floor, washing clothes and much more. When she finished her chores, Orisha would give her impossible tasks, like demanding she fill a basket with water, knowing it couldn't be done. Rika would sit beside her mother, laughing at Lillian's frustration. Frank was aware of the cruelty his daughter faced, but felt powerless to stop it. He started coming home late, trying to avoid the sadness in Lillian's eyes, and often returned drunk, overwhelmed by the pain of watching his family fall apart. As the years went by, Lillian and Rika grew into stunning young ladies, but their lives took very different paths. Lillian had come to accept her fate as the household maid. Every morning, before anyone else stirred, she would quietly slip out of bed to cook, clean, wash, and scrub the floors. Her days were filled with chores, and her hands showed the wear and tear of her hard work, yet she carried on without complaint. Despite the heavy burden she bore, Lillian found solace in the moments she shared with her father. Whenever Frank had to leave the house early and Oisha was still asleep, he would seek out Lillian, often finding her already deep in her tasks. He would gently pull her aside, his voice soft but filled with conviction. "Lillian," he would say, "I see everything you go through, and it hurts me deeply, but I want you to know, you are not a mistake. This cruelty you face will one day become the stepping stone to your better life." Lillian would nod, her heart swelling with emotion, and she'd hug her father tightly. "Goodbye, Dad. I love you," she'd whisper, holding on to the warmth of his words. These brief moments with her father were the bright spots in Lillian's life. They gave her hope, a small but steady flame that kept her going. She cherished his words, believing that one day she would rise above the hardship and find the freedom she longed for. One afternoon, as Lillian was washing a pile of clothes, she heard a knock on the gate. Quickly, she left her work and hurried to see who it was. To her surprise, 4 elderly men stood at the entrance. "Good afternoon, sirs," Lillian greeted them politely. "Who are you looking for? My mother and father aren't home." One of the elders stepped forward and asked, "Are you Lillian?" "Yes, I am," she answered with a surprised look. "We are here to talk to you. Your father sent us." Curious and a little worried, Lillian allowed them in. As soon as they sat down, Aisha walked in. "Ah, madam, welcome," one of the elders greeted her. Lillian quickly explained, "They just arrived. They haven't said anything yet." But Aisha cut in sharply, "So, what are you doing in my house? What are you doing with her? Someone should tell me what it is, or whatever you need to say, and leave my house." One of the elders responded calmly, "We've come from Tierra village. Earlier today, we were having an elders meeting at our village square when we noticed a car that had run into a ditch. Our young men rushed to the scene and managed to pull out a man who was barely alive. With his last breath, he told us, 'Don't bother taking me to the hospital. I have nothing left to live for.' He then described this house and asked us to tell his daughter, Lillian, not to give up on life as he did. Lillian's heart shattered as she screamed, "No, no. My father can't die. He can't leave me all alone here." Orisha, showing little emotion, asked the elders, "Did he say anything else?" The elders shook their heads in unison. "No," they replied. "He passed away immediately after those words." Orisha frowned and dismissed them coldly. "You can go now. Please, leave my house." As the elders left, Lillian collapsed to the floor, crying bitterly. She knew that her father's death marked the beginning of a new, indeed darker chapter in her life, one filled with uncertainty and fear. As soon as the elders left, Aisha stormed back into the house, a twisted smile on her face. She turned to Lillian and sneered, "Prepare to die with your father and mother, or get ready to cope with the worst of me." Without another word, Aisha charged into Lillian's room. She grabbed all of Lillian's good clothes and shoes, carried them to the backyard, and set them on fire. As the flames rose, she taunted, "This is my house, and no one competes with my child." From that day on, Aisha's hostility toward Lillian intensified. Each day brought new cruelty, and Lillian's life became even more unbearable.
At the palace.
King Obet had ruled over Futuna city for more than 30 years, guiding his people with wisdom and strength. His only son, Prince Martins, had been sent abroad at the age of 10 to receive his secondary and tertiary education. Now, according to the customs of the land, it was time for Prince Martins to return home. Tradition demanded that Prince Martins had to marry a woman from Futuna city. To ensure the right match, King Obet issued a royal decree. The High Chief was to gather all the eligible young women in the city for a selection process. From this group, the best 10 would be chosen to live in the palace with the prince for 3 months upon his return to afford him the opportunity to choose his bride. The king gave the High Chief strict instructions to carry out the selection process with the utmost care and integrity. "The future of our land rests on this choice," King Obet advised. "Choose wisely, for the woman who becomes the prince's bride will shape the destiny of Futuna." Before the interview day, Aisha had already bribed the High Chief's wife to ensure her daughter, Rika, would be selected. The morning of the interview, Rika was preparing herself, her excitement barely contained. As she dressed, she suddenly shouted at Lillian, "Don't just stand there staring, clean my shoes." Lillian hurried over to grab the shoes when Aisha entered the room. "What is she doing here?" Aisha snapped. "Don't let her touch you or anything you're taking to that place. I won't have her bad luck rubbing off on you." Rika, now ready, walked with pride toward the door, her head held high as she walked. Aisha cheered, "Hail the future queen of Futuna city." She proudly escorted her daughter to the door. While Lillian watched from a distance, tears silently rolling down her cheeks. Just as Aisha was about to close the gate, Rika turned and said, "Mom, as the future queen of Futuna city, I shouldn't have to carry my own bag. I need a servant, someone to carry it for me." Aisha laughed, pride swelling in her chest. "You truly are my daughter. May your kingdom reign forever." She then turned to Lillian and commanded, "Get your slippers and go with her. Make sure you clean her shoes before she enters the hall." Lillian hesitated. "Ma'am, I haven't bathed, brushed my teeth, and my clothes are dirty. Can I at least do my personal hygiene and change?" Aisha's face twisted with anger. "Get your slippers and get out of here, now." Feeling humiliated, Lillian slipped on her worn-out slippers and quickly collected her sister's handbag, and both of them walked to the gate. Lillian walked beside her younger sister to the town hall, her heart heavy with shame. while Riker walked majestically, smiling all the way. All the chiefs and interviewers arrived at the town hall 2 hours before the scheduled time, standing outside as they waited for the cleaners to finish up inside. As the ladies of Futuna City began arriving one by one, the interviewers handed them tags, while one of them recorded their names in a file. By 10 minutes before the scheduled time, all the ladies had gathered at the town hall, ready for the interview and selection process. However, since the hall was still being cleaned, they waited outside. Lillian noticed Riker looking tired, so she found chairs for her and her 2 friends to sit on. Then, she approached an elderly woman who was busy sweeping the compound right in front of the ladies. "May I help you with that?" Lillian asked. "Please, let me take the broom and finish sweeping." The old woman shook her head. "No, my daughter. You're here for an important event. You shouldn't be doing this kind of work." Lillian insisted, "I can't stand by while you do this. Please, let me help." The cleaner hesitated. "I can't accept, my daughter. You might punish me if you become queen." Lillian replied earnestly, "Being a queen doesn't make someone superior. Any position in life is about serving others. Please, let me do this." Moved by Lillian's humility, the cleaner finally agreed and handed her the broom. As Lillian swept the compound, whispers and laughter erupted among the other ladies. One of Riker's friends sneered, "I'm so embarrassed to be related to Lillian." Riker, clearly relishing the moment, added, "I'm ashamed to share the same father with her." Despite the cruel comments and mocking, Lillian focused on her task, her dignity intact as she quietly swept the compound and dusted the chairs. As soon as the sweeping was finished, the High Chief stepped forward to address the gathered ladies. "Greetings to all of you," he began. "I'm pleased to announce that we have come to the end of today's interview. My team and I arrived early to observe every one of you as you were arriving at this venue. I want all of you to know that everything that happened here today was not a coincidence. They were part of this event. And after careful consideration, we have selected the 10 beautiful ladies who will be coming to the palace for close observation. This will allow Prince Martins to choose his bride from among you." He began calling out the names of the chosen ladies, announcing 9 of them before pausing, realizing that one was missing. Looking around, he asked one of the interviewers to find Lillian. The interviewer soon discovered her behind the hall, sweeping. The interviewer asked in surprise, "Were you one of the paid cleaners? Why were not you inside?" Lillian smiled humbly. "I'm not even qualified to be a palace servant, let alone the future queen. I'm not here for the contest. I only came to look after my kid sister, who's here for the competition." The man chuckled and said, "Well, the High Chief wants to see you inside." When Lillian walked inside, the High Chief looked at her and said, "Join the other 9. He then addressed the group. "You must all move into the palace next week Tuesday, which is exactly a week today. Everyone must arrive by 4 p.m. or you and your parents or guardians will face serious consequences." He handed each of the chosen ladies a letter. "Give this to your parents or guardians. I'll see you at the palace next week." Lillian's face was a picture of surprise as she accepted the letter. She knew this would bring nothing but trouble at home, as her unexpected selection would undoubtedly stir up tension and resentment. As Lillian and Riker arrived home, Aisha greeted them with a triumphant smile. "I knew they would pick you, Riker. I've already paid for the service." But to her surprise, Riker sat down and began to sob uncontrollably. "What happened, my daughter? Were you not chosen?" Aisha asked, her voice filled with concern. But Riker just kept sobbing, unable to speak. Aisha turned sharply to Lillian. "What did you do to my daughter? Lillian quietly handed over the letter she had received. I was instructed to move to the palace next week, Tuesday. Rika's turned into anger as she shouted, "You're not going anywhere. I can't stand the thought of you being in that palace." Aisha's eyes widened as she asked, "You were invited to the palace too?" Rika, still seething, responded, "Yes, she was asked to come to the palace. I was the second name they called, while she was the last person." Aisha took both letters and read them carefully. "Prince Martins has been in London for over 20 years, she muttered, her mind racing. "I'm certain he wouldn't choose someone as lowly as you." She then turned to Lillian with a cold glare. "For the next week, you're forbidden from brushing your teeth or bathing. I'll make sure you're sent back from the gate before you even set foot inside that palace." Rika, who had been crying moments before, burst into laughter. "I knew I could count on you, Mom. I don't want her anywhere near me in that place." Aisha glanced at the letters again, her expression hardening. "If it were not for this letter, I would have sent you to my mother's village to spend the rest of your life there." That week was pure hell for Lillian. Aisha made sure she didn't do any personal hygiene and forbade her from washing her clothes. Instead, she kept Lillian busy with endless house chores, determined to wear her out and make her look as disheveled as possible. Meanwhile, Aisha was busy preparing Rika to perfection, teaching her how to smile elegantly and how to move her waist gracefully while walking. She even hired a skin specialist to pamper Rika's skin and hair, and bought her a brand new set of makeup. On the day they were to go to the palace, Aisha woke Lillian at 3 a.m., demanding that she cook, clean, and do every other chore in the house. She piled up nearly all the clothes in the house for Lillian to wash. And when that was done, she ordered her to fill a basket with water to the brim. Lillian sobbed quietly as she worked, exhausted and overwhelmed. As she toiled away, Rika taunted her. "Lillian, my mom was trained you well to be my slave when I made the crowned queen. You'll definitely live in the palace with me as one of my servants, I promise." At 2:30 p.m., Rika left for the palace, looking every bit the royal candidate. Meanwhile, Lillian was still struggling to fill the basket with water. Aisha sneered at her. "No one will let someone like you into the palace. You look absolutely disgusting." At 3:45 p.m., Aisha barked at Lillian, "Get out of my sight and head to the palace. You have 15 minutes left, and you better get there on time. If you cause me any trouble, you'll regret it." Lillian hurried out of the house, looking dirty and disheveled. When she arrived at the palace, the gateman took one look at her and stopped her, in disbelief. "Are you one of the ladies here for the prince?" he asked, eyes wide with surprise. Lillian nodded hesitantly, "Yes." The gateman shook his head in shock. "Why are you dressed like this? You don't look good at all." Seeing her pitiful state, he quickly called over one of the palace servants. "Please," he urged, "get her a change of clothes. She needs to look at least a little better. And take her to the last room that was prepared for the guest." The palace servant nodded and hurried off to help Lillian, while the gateman watched with a mix of concern and pity, hoping she wouldn't face any trouble once inside. At 7 p.m., all the ladies were gathered in one of the sitting rooms, anxiously awaiting the arrival of Prince Martins. The room was filled with a tense silence until Loveth broke it. "Hi, everyone," she said, her voice confident. "I want to make it clear that I'll be the one sitting beside the prince when he comes in. I can't stand the thought of anyone else taking that spot beside my future husband." Everyone stunned with her saying, while Rika's face darkened with a scowl. "What are you implying? Do you think I'm here to play games? The prince is mine, and the sooner you realize that, the better." As the others began to chime in, the door opened and Prince Martins entered the room. The ladies quickly stood up to greet him, some with bright smiles, hoping to catch his eye. Prince Martins, with a calm and regal demeanor, asked each of the ladies to introduce themselves. One by one, they took their turns, each adding a flirty comment like, "My prince, you're so handsome," or "My prince, you're truly charming." Only Lillian introduced herself politely and without embellishment. After listening to all the introductions, Prince Martins signaled to one of the two guards standing by his side. The guard handed out booklets to each lady. These booklets contain the detailed schedule of our activities, the prince explained. We'll be spending a lot of time together, engaging in games, exercise, conversations, walks, meals, and much more. Please go through the schedule and prepare accordingly. He then added with a warm smile, "And for your information, my guards, Desmond and Patrick, will be here to attend to any of your needs. I look forward to getting to know each of you better. Good night, ladies." With that, Prince Martins turned and left the room, leaving the ladies with a mix of excitement and anticipation for what lay ahead. Rika had been spending her days at the palace making friends with the male servants, subtly probing them for information about Prince Martins. She'd often slip them small amounts of cash as a thank you for any valuable details they shared. One day, she convinced one of the servants to do her a favor. "Can you please go to my house and ask my mom to meet me here secretly at the palace?" she requested, her tone pleading. Before her mother arrived, Rika made sure to visit the security guard at the palace gate. Slipping him some money, she leaned in and whispered, "My mom will be here this evening, at 5 p.m. I know it's against the rules, but could you let her hide in your office for a bit? I really need to talk to her." The security guard nodded, a sly smile crossing his face. "Anything for you, ma'am," he agreed, pocketing the cash. Rika had been anxiously waiting for her mother, pacing back and forth until Orisha finally arrived, looking worried. "I couldn't relax after getting your message," Orisha said as she entered the small office. "Are you okay? How are things going with the prince?" Rika sighed deeply before speaking. "Mom, when it comes to beauty, I'm not the most beautiful one here. And there are so many things I don't even know how to do well. You have to do something to make sure the prince chooses me over the others." Aisha nodded, a determined look in her eyes. "You're truly my daughter, and I'll make sure you become the crowned queen. Don't worry, I'll come back in 2 days with a plan." Feeling reassured, Rika returned to her room with a smile, confident that her mother was up to the task. Since arriving at the palace, Lillian had quietly made a habit of helping the female servants with their daily chores, such as cleaning, washing, sweeping, and arranging things around the palace. The servants had tried to stop her, reminding her that she was there for a different purpose, but Lillian was persistent. She woke up early every morning to join them, and over time, they began to see her as one of them. Angela, the servant who had given Lillian clothes on her first day, often urged her not to get involved in the dirty work. But Lillian couldn't help herself. It was in her nature to lend a hand. Desmond, one of the prince's guards, had been observing Lillian from a distance. He noticed how she easily blended in with the servants, and one day, he decided to intervene. Approaching her, he said firmly, "Lillian, you need to stop this. You're here as a guest, not a servant. Please stick to the activities in the program booklet." Lillian was taken aback. "Please, sir," she pleaded. "I must do this every day. I'm just helping them, they're my friends. Please don't stop me." Desmond sighed, sensing her sincerity. "You're putting my job at risk. If the king finds out, I could be in serious trouble." Lillian's eyes filled with concern, but she pleaded once more, "Please, help me, don't stop me." Desmond hesitated for a moment before finally nodding. "Okay, I'll discuss it with the prince." Lillian's face lit up with gratitude. "Thank you so much, sir," she said, her voice filled with appreciation. As Lillian and Desmond were talking, they suddenly heard loud noises coming from the other ladies. The argument had escalated into a full-blown fight between Loveth, Riker, and Betty, each of them vying for dominance in the competition. By the time the guards arrived, the scene was chaotic. Desmond shook his head in disbelief as he sat down and said, "This is so childish. Why don't you wait for the prince to make his choice in front of everyone? There's no need to fight over this. Just do your best and let the outcome speak for itself." Lillian quietly watched the commotion, her eyes resting on Riker. Riker, sensing Lillian's gaze, Riker sneered and said loudly, "Lillian, I would have invited you to my room to wash my things as usual, but I don't need you here anymore. The servant assigned to me has taken over your duties." She said this in front of everyone, trying to humiliate Lillian. But Lillian remained calm, nodding slightly. "All thanks to her," she replied, "but I'm still at your service any time you need me." That night, as Lillian settled into bed, she whispered to herself, "I refuse to give up on life. I am not a mistake. I will surely succeed." These words, spoken in the quiet of the night, were a promise she made to herself of how to rise above the challenges she faced. 2 days later, as promised, Aisha returned to the palace with a plan. She handed Riker a small vial containing a seducing charm. "Arrange a private meeting with the prince," Aisha instructed. "When you see him approaching, quickly apply this to your eyelids and wink 3 times. He'll lose his heart to you instantly. Don't make any mistakes. Fight for what belongs to you." Riker nodded, grateful for her mother's help. Once back inside, Riker sought out Patrick and pleaded with him to arrange a one-on-one meeting with the prince. She slipped him some money and promised more when her mother returned. Patrick reluctantly agreed. As the prince approached, Riker followed her mother's instructions, winking 3 times while saying, "Aren't I beautiful?" The prince smiled warmly and replied, "You are very beautiful, my darling." From that moment on, their relationship blossomed. The prince became so fond of Riker that he would go to great lengths to protect her. When the other ladies, Loveth, Agatha, Betty, Ada, and Precious, noticed the growing bond between Riker and the prince, they made a vow that they would not leave the palace without securing a marriage. Determined to find a place in the royal family, no matter what it took, Lillian immersed herself in learning from the palace's female servants and soon began assisting the cook in the kitchen. Her food quickly became popular among the staff, and the cook, impressed by Lillian's skills, asked her to share her secrets. One evening, as the king enjoyed his dinner, he noticed a remarkable change in the food's flavor. He requested the cook, Madame Zara, to come to him. "I've noticed a dramatic improvement in your cooking over the past 2 days," the king said. "The food is delicious, and I want to increase your salary for this. You've really outdone yourself." Madame Zara smiled and replied, "Long live the king. It's not just my work. One of the ladies here has been helping in the kitchen, and she was the one that prepared dinner for the past 2 days. She asked to assist, and with permission from the prince through Mr. Desmond, her request was granted." The king was intrigued. "I'd like to meet her tomorrow." The next day, in his private sitting room, the king requested to see the young lady who had contributed to the improved meals. Lillian entered, dressed simply, and greeted the king. The king smiled warmly and asked, What can I do to thank you for the wonderful meals you've prepared? Lillian bowed her head respectfully and responded, "Long live the king. All I ask is to be employed as one of the palace servants. I would be honored to serve you and your kingdom." The king nodded thoughtfully. "I will consider your request once the competition is over." Lillian thanked him and left the room, her heart full of hope and excitement. The day before the final selection was a memorable one. All the ladies, the prince, and his 2 guards gathered on the field for a day of exercise, dressed in their sportswear. Before starting, the prince addressed the group. "I hope you've all enjoyed yourselves throughout this competition. I want to thank you for your time, sacrifices, and the effort you've put in. I've cherished every moment spent with you. Tomorrow is the big day when I'll announce my queen publicly. Additionally, the king has promised a token of an 500,000 to each of you. Once again, thank you for everything." With that, the prince signaled the start of the sports activities. The group engaged in jogging, running, walking, and other exercises, embracing the day with enthusiasm and joy. As soon as they entered the palace, Lillian approached Desmond with a serious expression. "Sir, I would like your assistance in securing a position as a palace servant. I'm eager to continue working and contributing here, rather than returning home and remaining idle." Desmond looked thoughtful and replied, "You mentioned that the king would consider your request. Let's wait for his decision. But I also wonder, are you not thinking about marriage? Isn't that something you should be considering by now?" Lillian shook her head gently. "Marriage is important, but I'm not ready for it at the moment. My focus right now is serving people with joy." Desmond raised an eyebrow, a hint of curiosity in his voice. "I'm sure no one here matches your taste. All you desire is a wealthy man to come along." Lillian smiled warmly. "I'm open to marrying someone who values and accepts me for who I am. Wealth is not my priority. I believe that with mutual respect and hard work, we can build a successful life together. What matters most is finding someone who will support and cherish me, regardless of their financial status." Desmond nodded, clearly impressed. "That's a commendable outlook. Keep your hopes high and stay aware of your surroundings. Your attitude and dedication have been remarkable throughout this competition." Lillian thanked him sincerely, her eyes reflecting gratitude. "Thank you for all your support and guidance during this time. It has meant a lot to me."
The big day.
The palace event hall was transformed into a breathtaking arena for the grand event. The hall is adorned with vibrant decorations and lush flowers, sparkled under the different shade of lighting. The arrival of guests from the neighboring villages and city was well coordinated. As the guests were arriving, they were walking majestically in their finest attire, their excitement palpable as they took their seats. Villagers, dressed in their best, eagerly awaited the announcement of Futuna City's future queen. As the atmosphere buzzed with anticipation, dancers and singers took the stage, their performances adding a festive rhythm to the day. Amidst the lively entertainment, the 10 finalists made their grand entrance. The ladies, dressed elegantly, proceeded to their seats at the high table, each hoping to catch the prince's eye. King Obet rose to address the gathering, his voice resonant with authority and warmth. "Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, and beloved citizens of Futuna City, I extend a heartfelt welcome to all of you. Today's event holds immense significance for the future of our land. As many of you know, this tradition is both a time-honored custom and a vital part of our heritage. I invited my son, Prince Martins, back from abroad to undertake a responsibility that is crucial for our kingdom. He has come home to select his bride according to our ancient customs. I understand that most of you may not yet be familiar with Prince Martins, which is why we brought the candidates to the palace. This has allowed both the prince and the ladies to spend time together, understand each other, and for him to make an informed decision about who will be the best fit for our future queen. King Obet continued, "Without further delay, I'd like to invite Detective Patrick, one of the managers of our competition, to present the detailed report." The audience erupted in applause as Detective Patrick stepped up to the podium, his demeanor serious and poised. "Good day, esteemed guests," Patrick began. "Today's report is crucial for maintaining the integrity of this competition and ensuring transparency. We are addressing these issues publicly to prevent any misunderstandings or rumors that could tarnish the reputations of our king, prince, and the kingdom. To begin with, prior to the arrival of the ladies, we installed CCTV cameras throughout the palace, both inside and outside, to ensure their safety of our ladies, and that of Prince Martins. Over the past 3 months, we hosted 10 ladies here. Unfortunately, we discovered that 5 of them, Betty, Loveth, Ada, Agatha, and Precious, were pregnant by newly hired guards. However, not all were marred by such incidents. 3 ladies, Joy, Peace, and Mercy, maintained exemplary conduct throughout the competition. Although they were not chosen by Prince Martins, their outstanding behavior did not go unnoticed. In recognition of their integrity, Prince Martins has decided to award them an additional 300,000 each, on top of the 500,000 already promised to all participants. The crowd clapped enthusiastically for Joy, Peace, and Mercy. Orisha, who had been smiling in anticipation, now wore a puzzled expression. She was surprised not to see Lillian's name mentioned among the top contenders and muttered to herself, "She must have committed a grievous offense. I will definitely deny knowing her, today." Detective Patrick continued, "Now, I'd like to call Prince Martins, who's seated next to King Obet, to join us at the podium. And Mr. Desmond, please come up as well." The crowd buzzed with excitement as Prince Martins and Desmond walked to the front. Desmond took the microphone with a mischievous grin. "Ladies and gentlemen," Desmond began, "I have a story to share. Immediately, I returned to the country from abroad. I decided to check on my old primary school friend in one of our neighboring villages. I was shocked when he told me that he now works as a truck pusher in the market, to keep soul and body together. He explained how things got bad for him when he lost his both parents after our primary education." Desmond paused, but before we dive into the big reveal, let me ask Rika to come forward. Rika glided to the front, her every step oozing confidence, twisting her waist. Her mother, Orisha, clapped enthusiastically, beaming with pride. Desmond continued, "Here we have Rika, one of our stunning contestants. She's worked hard to win the prince's heart, even going as far as having her mother bring a charm to ensure her victory. What she didn't know was that we swapped that charm with a simple Vaseline. And the prince she's been charming isn't actually Prince Martins. He's an old friend of mine, who was brought into disguise as the prince." The disguised prince, smiling brightly, said, "Surprise! I'm just an ordinary guy from Tierra village, a poor wheelbarrow pusher, happily married with 6 kids." The audience burst into laughter and gasps, while Orisha was surprised at the twist. Rika's face turned a vivid shade of red. The shock of the revelation was evident as she struggled to comprehend the unexpected turn of events. The mix of disbelief and humor made her shake uncomfortably. Desmond grinned widely and said, "Hold on, everyone. My real name isn't Desmond. I am actually Prince Martins of Futuna City." The crowd gasped in surprise and excitement. The prince continued, "I have been in the country 2 months earlier to the time announced, to enable me prepare my friend for this task. I was one of the interviewers at the town hall. I was the gate man the day the ladies arrived at the palace. So, I'm overjoyed to announce that the lady who has truly won my heart is Lillian. Lillian, please come up here and join me at the podium. Let me introduce you to my people. Lillian, stunned and ecstatic, made her way to the front. As she approached, the female servants, brimming with excitement, rushed to her. With cheers and laughter, they lifted her up and carried her around the field, chanting, "She's our queen. She's our queen. Hail the future queen of Futuna. She's our queen." The crowd erupted in applause and cheers, celebrating the new queen of Futuna City. Music played, and the entire hall was filled with joy and excitement. Orisha, who had been watching the drama unfold with mounting disbelief, suddenly shouted, "This can't be. My daughter was supposed to be the future queen." Overwhelmed by shock, her legs gave way, and she collapsed to the ground. Rika, still standing, looked utterly bewildered, tears streaming down her face as she struggled to comprehend what was happening. King Obet stepped forward, a broad smile spreading across his face. "If you need more clarity about today's events," he said with a chuckle, "you're welcome to visit the secretary's office to view the CCTV footage. It will clear up any confusion." Smiling broadly, he added, "My son's wedding is set to take place in 2 market days. I extend an invitation to all of you to join us in celebrating this joyous occasion." The crowd erupted in cheers and applause, thrilled by the announcement and the unexpected twist of events. While the second group of female palace servants danced around with Lillian again, saying, "Hail the future queen of Futuna City." 1 month later, Rika discovered that she had been pregnant for the truck pusher, who disguised as the prince at the competition. Devastated by the revelation, Rika and her mother, Orisha, decided to leave Futuna City secretly in disgrace. They traveled to Aisha's mother's village, seeking refuge away from the judgmental eyes of their community. In the quiet of the village, Rika gave birth to a baby girl and ended up as a single mother.
Hello, besties. What lessons did you learn from this story? Please share them with us in the comment section below. I also want to remind you that giving up on yourself is never an option. You are not a mistake, and whatever situation you're going through can become a stepping stone to a brighter future.